Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the invite for this evening. So allow me to talk a little about the ScubaTrust. Steve was saying, yes, we have known each other for quite a while. I've been diving 25 years. So I looked at one of my old logbooks, Steve. On the 16th of June, 1999.
Oh dear.
We were under Swanage Pier about this time. And I can read a quote from my notebook, from my dive log. It says, Steve was determined to bag a small lobster. Eventually he got it, but it was very small and returned. So I think that was my first dive with you, Steve.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Eric.
99, yeah. Times have changed.
Indeed. I hope them lobsters are bigger as well.
Oh, okay. I'd also just like to say hello to Jess, my daughter, who I think has joined us from Israel. And she's giving a talk on the 8th of November. So you need to tune in for that one. Anyway, introduction's gone. Okay, the ScubaTrust. So what do? We basically teach or retrain disabled people to scuba dive. The trust has been going for 25 years. We've just celebrated our 25th birthday. So over that time, we've trained and taken people diving, hundreds of people over that period. I've been involved about 8 years. So I got involved, if a lot of you probably remember the Royal Geographical lectures in London. So I went along to one of those. They were very supportive of us. And we were those horrible people with the yellow T-shirts, shaking our buckets, trying to get money out of you before you went to the bar. So that was a great fundraiser. Unfortunately, that, of course, as you will realize, has all gone. But I saw one of the speakers there who was a paraplegic, and he was actually larger than life, a great guy. And so I just went along to the ScubaTrust stand and said, can I join? Do you need any help? And there I am. And now I'm been chairman for a few years. Okay, so we take people who are new to diving. So maybe they've had an injury and they've never dived before. And also, of course, people who have dived before, then had an injury and want to retrain and get back into the water and see if they can still do it. Plus, of course, people who've got lifelong medical conditions. So who are we open to? We're open to virtually anybody that we can. So wheelchair users, paraplegics, quadriplegics, amputees, deaf people, people with autism, people with spina bifida, people with Parkinson's. You know, the list goes on. If they can get a medical, then we'll take them. We'll come on to the medical a little bit later. That's one of our issues, of course. Just to sort of mention some of the interesting things with the deaf divers aboard, which I don't mention much. We do have a little cohort of deaf divers with us, and of course their advantage is they're having full conversations under the water about everything else. All we can do is say up or down or not very happy, and they're having full conversations. So they've got quite an advantage underwater. As for the autistic people that we do, you have to be very careful with them because they take everything, or the people that I know, I'm not a medic, but they tend to take things very literally. So we can say to one of the guys, don't forget you've got to keep checking your air. So he checked his air constantly during the dives, and so you have to train him out of that. No, I didn't mean you've got to check your air all the time, just at regular intervals. So interesting people. And also with another autistic chap we've got, he talks very loudly and well into your face. So he's talking really quickly. Are we going diving? How deep are we going to go? Where are we going to go? How deep are we going to go? Are we going to go to a wreck? Constantly. You put him under the water and he's completely silent and he's concentrating on his diving. He's a very good diver. Out of the water, he's interesting. So most of our people have come to us, unfortunately, through one of the most common is motorbike accidents. People have back injuries on their motorbikes, car accidents, push bike accidents even. And then another branch that we seem to get is people with rugby injuries. So there's an awful lot of people with rugby injuries who hurt their backs. So they're the type of people that we come to. We tend not to have many military people. There's another fantastic organisation doing similar work to us, very good work called Depth Therapy, and they look after a lot of the military people. Okay, so what do we do for our training? So we meet once a month in Ascot. We've got a private pool, belongs to a school, very nice pool, in a private school up there. It's fairly central because we have people coming from Devon, from Norfolk, from the south of England, from London, from the Midlands, because that's the only sessions we currently have, and they're in Ascot. The pool's fairly expensive, but we get it for ourselves, our sole use. So that's very good for building people's confidence. And people feel happy because obviously they can be a bit self-conscious if it was a public pool. And it's nice and warm too. So we have tri-dives, and then we try and develop people's skills in the pool, obviously, before we decide if they can come away with us on a holiday. We look at their weighting, which is often a problem with these people. If you're with some of our members, if they're not using their legs, or they're not using their hands, or they haven't got the strength to pull their tank round, weighting is very important. We struggle often. You'll see some of the photos later on, and people will say, oh, that's not a very good diving position. They're very upright. It's what some people do, and some people breathe better when they're upright, and that's the way they dive. All the weighting you try and do or put floats on people's feet is very difficult. So this helps build people's confidence in the training. Then we organise 2 or 3 holidays a year. The training people pay for as well, which is all money going into the ScubaTrust, and the holidays everybody pays. The members pay and the instructors pay the same amount, and we all go off on holiday together. It's usually about 20 of us, so if you're like a Red Sea boat full of people, so we can have a boat to ourselves. We've got a few places that we go regularly, Camel in Sharm, for example, where they know us, the instructors know us, some of the boat people know us, and we know the situation. It's always difficult going somewhere new where they promise you everything. All right. Oh, yes, we've dealt with disabled people before. Yes, that'll be no problem. Yes, we've got plenty of disabled rooms, etc. And when you get there, it's a different story, which can be difficult at 4 o'clock in the morning when you've got 20 people trying to get to sleep. Okay, so we've been all over Grenada, as I say, Red Sea. We tend to do 1 or 2 Red Seas a year, and one long haul the next year with the Red Sea. Mexico, Indonesia, we've been around. Okay, why scuba? So this is for people who are disabled. Why would they choose scuba? Well, it's great for comfort. I basically want to say, really, they choose it for the same reasons as you choose scuba. Why do you go diving? Because it's enjoyable. You get to meet lots of people from all different walks of life. You're all in the same boat together. Everybody helps each other. It's a buddy system. Same thing. But of course, if you are disabled, it gives you great confidence to be surrounded by a lot of other people who are in a similar boat or who've done it before, and it really helps with your well-being. And of course, now we're talking about mental health as well. If you feel that you're never going to get out of your wheelchair and you're stuck in it for the rest of your life and you're not going to do anything exciting, you can. Okay. The other great thing about scuba is you don't need any adaptions on kit. So, as you can see from the photograph there, there's people diving without fins. Well, I dive with fins, so I've actually got more kit on than that young lady's got on. If you try another sport, for example, tennis, You're going to need a wheelchair, which costs about £6,000. You're going to need partner to play with over the net. The rules are slightly different. I'm not degrading other sports at all. I'm just saying why scuba is excellent for people, because the ball's allowed to bounce twice. So it's not really tennis. You could play rugby, wheelchair rugby, but you need a whole team around you. You need a whole leagues around you. You need a very expensive wheelchair, 5 or 6 grand, to play with as well. And the rules are slightly different than traditional rugby. Scuba diving is the same. You need a bit less kit. Talking about kit in the training, when I went to my first try dive, and up in Ascot, and sort of said, can I help? And an instructor said to me, yes, can you just deal with this guy we'd got out of the wheelchair and sat him on the side of the pool, and said, can you just check over his kit for me, please? He was going to get some more weights. I said, fine. So I spoke to this gentleman and said, you've got your mask and you've cleaned your mask, that's great. And you've got your tank on your back and it's switched on, and you've got your BCD, that's great. And you've got your regulator and you've tried your regulators. And I said, oh, you haven't got any fins. Well, he told me he was military. He told me in military language that to go away, basically, because obviously he wasn't going to be using fins. So that was my first experience. Then later on that day, I was holding on to a paraplegic in the shallow end, and they said, can you just hang on to his tank at the back? If you let go of him, he will drown. You think, right, okay, I've got him. So the responsibility and the trust that people put in us is amazing. Imagine how nervous you were when you first started diving and going off on your first dives. If you were doing that with a disability as well, the trust and the bravery of some of these people is amazing. But then pain relief. Some of our divers, I'm not a medic by any means, but some of our divers will tell us that it's one of the only times they are pain-free. So if you're in a chair for all of your waking hours and you're touching the chair and your backside is touching the chair and the legs are touching the chair, sometimes people are in constant pain. If you suspend them in water where they're actually not touching anything solid, they do often come back and say, it's one of the times I really am pain-free, which is brilliant. A lot of them, of course, had active lives before they had a disability. And going back a few years to Stoke Mandeville, when they used to get people who had been in accidents and maybe they were ex-military, so they've been jumping out of aeroplanes, fighting wars or whatever, they'd get them back up to some sort of health and say, that's great, now you can start playing ping pong. Well, some of those guys, it's not quite what they want. They want to be active again and doing things that they did before they were disabled. A lot of them are thrill-seeking with no fear. Again, this is a problem sometimes for us and for divers. You're diving with a buddy who hasn't got any fear, because what's the worst that can happen? They've been through so much, they've suffered a lot, been lying flat on their backs or in wheelchairs. So if you sort of say, stick close to me and we'll go to a maximum of 18 meters, for example, some people don't take a lot of notice. So we have to be very careful and very strict with some of the people who tend to bend the rules a little bit because they don't care. I've mentioned it's time out of the chair and it's freedom. Okay, to actually be able to move in 3 dimensions is why we love diving. Imagine if you're in a chair every waking hour, to be able to do that yourself is fantastic. And scuba, of course, is a great leveler. Okay, so we always talk about, everybody's equal under the water, and that is true. And it really helps level the playing field. Some of our divers. Okay, moving on. What are our challenges? Right, I put down there transport. That is one of our biggest pains. So if we're going off on holiday, it's the airport. Okay, so we book in advance. We tell them how many wheelchairs are coming in advance, what we need, everything else. You get to the airport and they say, "Oh, no, we haven't got you booked in for that," or something always seems to put a spanner in the works. If you ever, I'm sure when you fly, you see that the people who are have difficulties are always loaded first. That's usually one or two people with sticks and the odd wheelchair in a plane. Well, we travel sometimes with 6, 7, 8 people in wheelchairs, and so it takes a long time to load us. So we're always loaded first because you have to transfer from your own wheelchair into an aisle chair, nice thin, slim aisle chair to get up and down the plane. Obviously, you can't do that. You know what it's like getting on a plane with everybody stood in the aisle. You can't do that with other people on the plane, so we have to be loaded first. But then we still have problems there, because if they have only got one aisle chair and you've got 6 or 7 people, it takes a long time. And so eventually someone decides, oh, well, we'll let all the other people on anyway. Well, if you've got a wheelchair coming down the aisle, either empty to pick up the next people or to drop someone off, it's now impossible. It's getting better, and people are getting far more aware. People still try and push in front of you in the queue to get on the plane, as people always seem to do. Also, it's just the booking system as well. So they'll say, oh, we'll sit people near the toilet so they can get up and go to the toilet. They can't get up and go to the toilet. There's no point sitting them there. There's no point sitting them on the aisle so they can get in and out easily, because they won't. You're just going to be blocking all the other people in who are farther in, who have to clamber over them because they can't move or they're not moving. So it's difficult. It's stressful for the guys and the girls leaving their wheelchairs behind. That is their bit of freedom. They have their cushions specially made so that they don't get sores, and you have to leave it behind. Well, you know where luggage sometimes ends up or doesn't end up. So they're very stressed about that usually, waiting for their wheelchairs at the other end. We have the same problem, of course, in buses and taxis, doing airport transfers, and the same in the hotels. So it's all booked in advance. Everyone knows going, yes, we've got plenty of disabled rooms. Yes, we've booked you into them. And you get there and they say, oh, we've let those rooms out to someone else. So that can give us real headaches. Or they've got an adapted room which is only up 3 or 4 steps, and you've just got a couple of steps to get into the shower. And you'll have to get out of the wheelchair if you actually want to get into the room. So it's not that easy. We do have some fun though at airports, I must admit. Some of the guys are fairly vocal. So I'm sure we've all been to the Red Line at Gatwick for a couple of beers before a flight. And if it's very busy, we'll probably find one of our guys at the front of the queue shouting out, make way, I'll use the word cripple coming through, make way for the cripple. And you soon part the sea of people at the bar and end up at the front of the queue. So great sense of humour, some of them, which they have to have. Okay, let's go on again. Okay, so this is in the Maldives, where we went 3 years ago now. And this boat is, see who it was run by, but it was run by a dive organisation who said, oh yes, no problem, we've had disabled people on the boat before, it won't be a problem. So when we got there, we got this nice old dhow with steps that just through over the side. You can see the metal steps there. And that was it. So I said to the dive owner, you know, what are you going to do? How are we going to get people out? And he said, it's impossible. We won't be able to do it. It's impossible. I said, well, should we all go back home again to England from the Maldives? Anyway, he was not helpful, but the boat crew were fantastic. And the contraption you can see there was made by the hotel maintenance guys overnight with Ramadan coming. So they've put a wooden slide on top with a hotel restaurant chair with padding on the back of it and ropes attached. So we were able to de-kit people. We always de-kit people before we get them out. De-kit them, position them onto the chair, and then haul up the seat to get them back onto the boat. I had a great pleasure in going back to the dive operation owner at the end of the dive saying, everybody did at least 10 dives, which is what we'd paid for originally. Most of us did more. We've all got in the water, we've all got out, and it wasn't impossible. I wasn't quite that polite, actually, but I did make my point that it is possible. So that was a great way to solve that problem. Cultural understanding of disability. This is really, again, with travel. If you go to some foreign countries, remain nameless, a lot of them will hide away their disabilities. It's very rare to see someone in a wheelchair in some countries because they are kept away at a public site, in homes, being looked after, but not generally around. We go around in a group of about 20, reasonably large and loud, all with matching T-shirts on, and 6 or 7 or 8 wheelchairs and other disabilities around in these countries. So we tend to draw a bit of attention, which the first few times I thought was a little bit embarrassing because, you know, getting onto a dive boat, you form a little crowd of locals who have come to watch and getting out their phones to take photographs, which I thought was a little bit embarrassing. But again, some of the guys are not fazed by this, so they are shouting out, come and sit on my lap, come and sit on the wheelchair user's lap, not in that language, and I'll just charge $10 for a photograph. We soon tend to disperse the crowds that way. But some of the cultures are quite different. We would like to do hotels and dive centres pre-visit checks. That hasn't happened for a few years now. We used to send someone out, or someone who was going on holiday would say, when you go to that particular place, make the inquiries, have a look at the facilities, check them all out before you come back. It doesn't always work out that way if no one's been there before, but that's what we would like to be doing. Okay, what are our challenges? Well, warmth is one of them. So we go away. Why do we go away to Grenada and the Red Sea? It's for warmth. Okay, so it's very hard if you have broken your back to control your temperature. So you get cold very easily and not know it. You can get hot very easily and overheat as well. So a warm water is ideal for us. Yes, we do some diving in the UK with some of the ScubaTrust people, but it's limited. You've all struggled getting into a dry suit. You've all struggled trying to get your feet into a wetsuit, I'm sure. Imagine if you haven't got any power in your legs and you're trying to get it into a wetsuit or a dry suit. It's very, very difficult. I'd say we don't need any special kit. We have had some adaptations made to some wetsuits where they're completely zipped from top to bottom and come into 2 pieces. So you lay the back piece of the wetsuit onto the deck. You then lay the diver onto the top of that, then the front piece of the wetsuit, and then completely zip it up. So there's not any pushing of trying to get your feet into wetsuits. And of course, you can break people's toes if you get them trying to cram them into a wetsuit or cram them into some boots. You can break people's toes and they won't know. Okay, so it can be very difficult. So nice warm weather is what we need to keep us warm. Entry and exit, well, we've spoken a bit about that before in the Maldives. The entry is not usually a great problem. We put people on the side and we give them a little push when they're ready. We see people already in the water to make sure they're okay, but that's normally the entry. Beach entries are very difficult. Before my time, I know the trust went to the Bahamas and they had a long walk or entry to get into the water across a sandy beach, which is now impossible with a wheelchair. But again, the maintenance people in the hotel managed to weld together some huge tires and a chair and made a wheelchair with big tires to get across the sand. So things are possible. Exits, as I say, are difficult. I was talking to Steve just before we came on about going to Mexico, and we have a Belgian member of the club as well who comes over. He saw us on a holiday once and said, "I want to join." So now he usually joins us on the holidays. He dives in Belgium a lot. He's a little bit gung ho. It's another motorbike accident, but he wanted to come on the boat to see the whale sharks and to snorkel with the whale sharks. It was a high-sided speedboat, as they tend to be there with the whale sharks, and we were worried about getting him out. So I took down the net hammock from the hotel, from my balcony, and we took that on the boat with us. And when he came back to the boat, we were able to scoop him out like a fish and catch him a fish. Not very dignified at all, but he said he didn't care. He was going in anyway, and we'd worry about getting him out later. So that was it. Equalisation. I'm just talking here, really, the gentleman at the bottom there. You can see we didn't equalise very well, or he didn't manage to equalise very well. But it's a problem for people, which I'll come on to later, for paraplegics, of course, quadriplegics who aren't using their hands. Weighting, I've already mentioned, really. Without amputees, you've got to distribute the weights differently. We try and get people into a sensible diving position, but if it's not comfortable for them and they're happy in a vertical position, we go with it. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's what we do. Sometimes we find that people haven't got the strength to pull their tank back round to the middle of their back. Again, if you're not using your legs, which gives you that impetus to move the tank around, that's a problem for people. So again, we've got to look at weighting. Sometimes we hang another weight belt underneath the diver, so dangling half a meter under the diver with weights on, so it acts a bit like a pendulum and tends to help people and keep them a bit more upright. You see the picture in the top right. Getting on and off the boats is usually purely manhandling. You get some very strong boat guys around, don't you? I don't know if you notice, but they are always incredibly strong. So we literally have to lift people over the transoms to get them onto the decks. So difficult. Oh, what did I miss there? Oh, currents. I'll talk about currents a bit in a minute. Okay, so really just to illustrate who we dive with, I've picked out some characters here. So this character here is in fact, the guy that I saw at the Royal Geographical Lectures. He's larger than life. His motto is "One Life, Live It." He's now a very well renowned, one of the country's best mouth painting artists. Yeah. So he's a great guy. I think he was about 19 and swerved to miss a badger. And that's the last time he walked. Okay. And we've got a biker there. A great character, very good friend of mine. He had 2 bike accidents. The first one ripped all the tendons out of his right arm, so he can't use his arm at all. But he decided that wasn't going to stop him riding his motorbikes. So he bungeed, roped his useless arm to his bike and had another accident. So he damaged his leg. So he gets a bad problems with his leg and has some slight brain injury as well. Was a diver beforehand and an excellent diver and looks after people amazingly well. Great guy. We have a couple who's the female of the couple is suffered from spina bifida. She's married to a registered blind albino gentleman who both learned to dive together and have been on holidays with us. I've done hundreds and hundreds of dives. They've been all over on their own, which is one of the great things about the ScubaTrust. We train people and then we take them to these places. Some of them thought they would never go abroad again since their accident, or haven't been abroad since their accidents or their illnesses. And then they go off on their own. They don't need to come away with a disabled diving group anymore. We hate that term, disabled diving group. So they go off on holidays on their own and done more dives than I've done now. So great. Difficult with registered blind. He has some sight, so he can see big things like dolphins, other divers, which is always helpful. And the pleasure they get is the pleasure that we all get, being with people, mixing with people, going on holiday, doing something together, which is great for them. Okay, so great time. He's now one of our trustees as well, and he's also an instructor for Paddy to get some of the enjoyment out of some of the small things. So if he sees a group of divers, or hopefully someone will call him across, if there's a seahorse or a nudibranch, he has got no chance at all of seeing that. So he takes his camera, he will take shots of what people seem to be looking at, and then back on the boat, he's very tech savvy. He will put his pictures onto his computer and blow them up. And so then, half an hour after the dive, you can hear him say, right, okay, that's what you were looking at, because he's blown it up to a size that he can actually see. There's actually in the bottom left-hand picture there is a quadriplegic, fantastic lady who's, congratulations, has just had a baby. She's quadriplegic. She was hit up the back by a drunk driver and is constantly in pain. She can't sleep very well. When we go away, she came away to Grenada with us, Grenada with us, and she has to bring 2 carers with her because she needs constant care. As a trust, I must just say, we supposedly don't get involved in any care. All we do is the diving side of things. So people should be able to either have help to dress themselves, toilet themselves, that sort of thing. We literally should just be doing the diving. Obviously, we do get involved, but officially we don't say that way. So she's constantly in plane. She has to get up a couple of hours before everybody else because she has to be sorted and prepared for the day, shall we say. But she was totally relaxed. She says, when I'm underwater, she just totally relaxes. And we were diving in Grenada, 12, 14 meters over a reef, and she fell asleep. So we are shaking her, knocking her on the head, saying, yeah, wake up. And she said, it's the only time I'm free of pain. I'm drifting over a coral reef. I'm warm. I'm not touching anything. It's fantastic. I know I'm supported. For a quadriplegic, we need 5 divers to accompany her. So we have a diver to control her buoyancy because she's got very slight movement in one hand, and she'll no doubt tell you just enough to hold a glass of wine, but not enough to be able to control her buoyancy. Okay, so we have an experienced diver on one side to control her buoyancy. She can't equalize herself, so she will need someone on the other side to hold her nose when she needs to clear her ears. It's quite well illustrated there, actually. And then on the back, we have another diver who will just be holding onto the tank to steady the tank to stop the roll. We do our best not to hold on to people and hold people's hands. We try and let them go as much as we can. But obviously, she will need someone to clear her ears, someone to do a buoyancy and hold her tank. Where do the other 2 divers come in? They're back up. So if I'm the diver controlling her buoyancy and I've got a problem, whatever that might be, and I need to surface or go away and sort out my problem, someone has to take my place. So behind us is another 2 divers who I can signal to, and they will come and take over my role. Okay, and another character, rugby injury, absolutely fantastic guy. Also made him a trustee as well, so we have another trustee there. Unfortunately, he's mainly chair-bound. He can walk, but he is, when we're saying he is slow, so he is always at the back of any diving. He's always at the back of any walking or anywhere we're going. So currents, which can be, as I was going to mention before, can be an issue because hopefully, obviously, all as proper divers, we're not going to swim against currents, but yes, we all know we do occasionally have to get ourselves through a bit of current. Okay, so sometimes we have to take someone's hand and perhaps give them a little pull to get them through a current. You may have seen on one of the other slides someone wearing webbed gloves. So if people do have good arm movement, webbed gloves are really useful. That's about the only extra bit of equipment that we usually have. But this character, we were diving in Mexico, and they said there might be a little bit of current. We got in the water, and it was racing. So we were all over the place. I was buddying with him. He's fine on his own. He obviously needs some support here and there, but he's fine on his own. And we were dodging bits of rock and coral and going up and down and overtaking people and going past other people. And it wasn't a terribly controlled dive, if I'm honest. So we surfaced. Actually, at the end of the dive, we surfaced. And I said, "Look, I'm really sorry." I said, "We really weren't in control of that dive at all." He said it was effing brilliant. He said, "I've never gone that fast before. Under my own steam, I'm overtaking people. I'm not the last person." So he actually left it. We actually did 3 dive sites in one dive. Yeah, drifting, if you're unable to fin or you're very slow at finning or you're only using your arms, a gentle drift dive please, is great. One other character with motor neuron, he fell off a ladder. He was working on a house. He's now 80 years old. He still comes away with us. You go virtually anywhere in Egypt and other places around the world, and they will know him. He's a real character. He's loved by everybody. We've made him a lifelong member. And he's disappointed the last 2 years because he's had dives cancelled or holidays cancelled all over this. He goes away without us. He's such a character. Either people know him or within a very short while of knowing him, they get to love him and take him under their wings. Okay, I've just got a few more photographs now, and then I'm just about finished, I think. Yeah, this is just in our pool, ready there for some training going in. I'm just seeing that young lady reminds me when she went to Egypt for the first time. Her first dive was not successful. She didn't enjoy it. She was got a waiting right. You know, we've all been there for your first open water dive, and she didn't enjoy it very much. She went back in the afternoon, didn't give up, and had a fantastic time. Had a really enjoyable dive. We were able to not leave her on her own. I don't mean leave her on. We were able to not hold hands all the time. And get her back to the boat where we de-kit people before getting them back in by whatever means. Usually a very strong Egyptian boat boy will grab both their arms and pull them straight up out of the water, which is fine. She's not. Anyway, she apparently got back. She got back to the boat and started to try and climb the ladder. Someone said to her, what are you doing? And she said, oh, crap. I forgot I was disabled. She'd enjoyed a dive so much. She'd got herself back to the boat. She totally forgot that she was disabled and was going to try and climb the ladder. So, amazing story. This is us on the Thistlegorm. Again, you can see the upright position there of the diver, and yes, some people criticize that, but that's the way it works for that lady. Again, more divers. Again, a couple there. I forgot to mention with the training, we also train able-bodied people. So that generates income for the ScubaTrust because we charge them as well. It tends to be the partner, wife, the girlfriend, the carer of a disabled person. So here in the middle, we have a wheelchair user, another motorbike accident, I'm afraid, another motorbike accident, and he is married to the lady there who's able-bodied, and they learned to dive together, and now don't attend ScubaTrust very much, except for the parties, maybe a holiday, but they go off on their own holidays. Just a success for them. Just a group of us. That's at one of the hotels, Mexico maybe. And again, another diver. It's a very large gentleman, very upright, has some issues, brain injury issues, and is just almost getting some movement back into his legs. And again, it's another bike accident, I'm afraid. But he's been supported there. He can propel himself along, and he used to dive before his accident, so that sometimes helps. Diver just being offered a hand. Doesn't look like as much current by the bubbles, but just be enough at a hand. Maybe people get tired very often, so they need help sometimes. Okay, we're back to the Maldives. Okay, Steve, I think that's just about me done.